everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make this fun 12 by 12 layout, and it features a faux zipper that I'm going to show you how to make out of metal foil tape and a soda can or a pop can pull. I'm using two papers from Little Yellow Bicycle from the Fern and Forest collection. And as I've said already, I'm going to be using this foil tape from Ranger, which has got adhesive on one side to make the faux zipper. Use a paper trimmer to cut 1/2 inch off two sides of your orange paper to make it into an 11.5 inch square. Keep hold of those strips, you might need them later. Using a pencil, lightly sketch in the two curves of your zipper, leaving plenty of room top left for your photographs and bottom right for your journaling. Make sure you use a light stroke because we'll need to erase this later. Then it's time to cut along those pencil marks, keeping your curves nice and rounded, and use an eraser to get rid of any remaining pencil marks when you've finished. Take a corner rounder and round the 3 remaining corners of the orange paper and the 4 corners of the base green paper. I've decided to use black as a colour that complements and stands out against these beautiful bold colours, so I'm lightly inking the edges of my papers with a black soot distress ink. Next we need to cut 3 strips of foil tape, so the full length of the sheet of tape as it comes at 3/8 of an inch wide. Now this tape is self-adhesive, so it's quite easy to work with, and it's quite forgiving when you use it. It's something I quite like to use. It's the first time I've used it making this faux zipper. Now I came up with this idea last night, so I'm hoping it's going to work. So as you work with the tape, only peel off a little bit of the backing at a time so that you don't get in a tangle and have it all stuck all over your layout. And the other thing that you need to do is to draw a guideline, roughly 1/8 of an inch in from that cut outside edge. And that will make sure that you get a uniform amount of the tape on this side of the paper. And then you're going to follow that line with your silver foil. Now you want that cut edge of the tape to follow the pencil line that you've drawn as much as you possibly can, and your tape is going to pucker as you follow that curve. Don't worry about it, just work as neatly as you can in following that line, and we're going to press out all those little pleats and flatten them once we've got our tape in position. Work in sections, and once you've got so far round with your tape, then take your scissors and just snip into that curve and fold the remainder of the tape onto the back of the paper. Then carry on working, following that pencil line, snipping and folding the remainder back over to the other side. And gradually we'll be creating an even silver edge all the way around that curve. I've just got a little bit left over, so I'm just filling in with a little bit of extra tape. Once your tape's all in position, then take either a bone folder, as I'm doing here, the edge of my scissors, just to flatten down that foil completely to achieve a smooth look, and just trim off any excess tape off the 2 outside edges. So you should have a nice smooth neat silver line, and that's forming the beginning of our faux zipper. So you're going to repeat that on the other piece of paper. So now you have both edges covered with the silver foil, we're ready to make the teeth of our faux zipper. So what we're going to do is emboss them into the silver foil, and the silver foil holds its shape well. Now I'd prefer to do it on my craft mat rather than on the piece of foam, so you have a little try and see which you prefer, and all you're going to do is emboss lines as if they are the teeth of your zipper on both strips of silver foil. I'm using quite a fine embossing tool to do this. And keeping with the zipper theme, I'm going to be doing some hand stitching, so I just want to create my stitch line, and then I'm going to punch the holes ready to stitch a black edge around each of these 2 sections using some black wool. So use a ruler to draw a faint pencil line, roughly 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of your paper, and then just sketch in the rounded corner by hand, and then you're going to follow again 1/8 of an inch away from that zipper edge and creating a stitch line ready to pierce the holes for your stitching. You could use a piercing tool to pierce the holes in your paper, but I'm using a mat pin and I find these are quite easy to use, and I've got a little piece of foam that I'm pushing the pin through the paper and into the foam, and I'm doing it by eye, roughly just under ½ an inch between each of the holes, and then I'm going to repeat that process on the other piece of orange cardstock. And once you've done all your piercing, then you need to take an eraser and just rub away all of your pencil marks before you begin stitching. Now I'm going to be using this thick woolen thread to do my stitching because I like the look. It's nice and bold, and I think that the design's quite bold. But if you wanted to use something a bit more delicate like an embroidery thread, you could use that, or even you machine stitch around each of the 2 orange pieces. The other thing that I couldn't decide was whether to use a back stitch or a running stitch, so I tried a little bit of both and then I decided to use both. So I'm going to use a running stitch all the way around the piece, but I'm going to do little bits of back stitch as I go around each of the corners. And you're also going to repeat that stitch pattern around the top left corner of the green paper where the photographs will be displayed. This time you come in 3/8 of an inch to do your stitch line. And don't forget to go low enough so that you can't see the end of the stitch when you add the orange paper back in place on your layout. To make a pretty pull for the zipper, take a section of the orange pinstripe that you cut away from the edge of your cardstock earlier and fold it in half. You want just slightly over an inch in length. So it's a double layer, and then you're going to trim it into a V to create the bottom of the pull. And then as I posted the pull through the Pepsi can, a nice little design accident happened and it didn't quite match up, but I quite liked the fact that you could see a little bit of the orange design underneath, so I'm keeping it like that. I'm just going to ink the edges of the pull with a little bit of the black soot before I stitch it into place. So again, just a little bit careful. You don't want to be too heavy-handed with the inking, and then fold it into position, and I'm going to keep it in place with a nice kiss stitch. So I'm just going to pierce the paper again, so 4 dots as if you're poking holes at the 4 corners of a square, and then I'm going to stitch across. And this nice little kiss shape of stitching is just enough to hold the 2 pieces of paper together and to keep the little pull in place. It's amazing how the addition of that little pop can pull brings the whole thing to life and makes sense of the faux zipper. Next it's time to mat your photographs, and I'm going to mat mine first on a white layer and then on a black. Of course we'll be using your own photographs for your layout, and I just wanted to give you a guide of the measurements of the photographs that I've used. So I've got 2 main photographs that measured 2 5/8 of an inch by 4.5 inches. They're the long photographs. Then I've got one square one at 3 inches by 3 inches, and then the little journaling photo, which is a copy of the 3-inch square photo at 2 inches square. The white frame is roughly 1/8 of an inch, and then I've gone finer still with the black. Measure the width of your 2-inch framed photograph and then cut 1/4 inch strips of white cardstock to the same length, ready to do your journaling. You might need to add more if you do more journaling. I've decided to show you something that I do every now and again when I want to save a little bit of the cardstock that I've been using. I really like this wood grain effect, and I think it would be quite useful. So you can see I'm just lightly tracing underneath each of the 2 orange shapes, because I know that I can remove card from underneath that section and no one will ever know. Now I like to do this with my paper trimmer, but you could equally do it with a craft knife and a ruler. So that's one section done, and then I'm roughly tracing around the other piece, and then I can remove an even bigger piece of the green to save for another layout or another card. So now it's time to make our layout look pretty again. So we're going to attach the pieces with double-sided tape, and you're going to run the tape over the stitching on the outside edges, And if you have gutted your paper, then just run it around the edges of any holes that you've cut into the paper, and then around that top curve where the zipper is. And it doesn't matter if the double-sided tape doesn't lie flat, it will once you press it into position. Now all you want to do along the curved edge is just lift a little bit of the tape and fold it to the top of the curve so that you can pull it out when you've attached your photographs, because at this stage we want this edge to be loose so that we can tuck our photographs into position. And the straight edges, you can remove the tape and around the aperture and stick that into position. Repeat the process for the second piece of orange. Remember to keep those little bits of tape free so that you can pull those pieces out once you're happy with the positioning of your photographs. So I'm positioning them loosely first, and then I'm going to attach them with tape. So my two bottom photographs are going on with tape, and I've decided to lift the top corner of my square photograph with 2 foam pads. So as you're happy with the positioning of your photographs, you'll be able to remove the backing tape from the 2 curved zipper areas where you left the little tab so that you can pull the backing tape away. I've written out my journaling in rough, and now I'm going to write it with a fine black pen onto the white strips of card we cut earlier. These are quite a fun way to add journaling to a layout, and it means if you make a mistake you've only got to cut another strip. I've decided to use one of the canvas stickers that come with this collection, so I'm mounting it onto a piece of black card and just cutting out a small frame all the way around the sticker. And the chances are that if you're going to make this lovely faux zipper layout, that your photographs will be different to mine. So whatever your title is, use lettering or letters so that you can fit your title along the curve of your zipper. I think it looks quite nice. Now as you can see, I'm using Mad as a Hatter, and I cut my letters out using the Zoobaloo cartridge and my Cricut. And it was at this point that I changed my mind about where I was going to put this sticker, because I preferred it underneath the photograph of Callum trying on that Mexican hat. So I'm going to carefully remove the little orange and white strip that I put in earlier, and I'm going to replace it with this canvas sticker. And using foam pads, I'm going to stick it here instead. Cut 1/4 inch strips of paper and ink the edges, and cut the tips to a point, and you're going to cut them at varying lengths and keep them positioned within the width of your journaling strip. Then attach 3 black pom-poms to the end of each paper strip. As you can see, mine were green originally, and I'm using black soot distress ink to colour them black. And repeat that embellishment pattern on the bottom left-hand corner of your layout. To attach the ring pull, first of all, pierce 4 holes around the top of the ring pull, and then using more of your woolen thread, stitch it in place with another kiss stitch. Not wishing to show my age, but to quote the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together. I'm really happy with how this design has translated from my head to reality, and I hope that you like this faux zipper finish enough to give it a go yourself. And I definitely recommend these little yellow bicycle papers. They're great quality and they stood up really well to all that hand stitching. And how cute does that ring pull look? I think it would make a great embellishment on its own. It doesn't even have to be attached to a zipper. If you like this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, then you'll be the first to know whenever I post a new tutorial. In the meantime, thank you for watching.